What's up, everybody? I'm Flash. This is One Man's Opinion, the show where we cover just about everything. And today, we're talking about the live-action adaptation of One Piece. Look, I gotta be honest, going into this thing, I was a little hesitant to watch it. Number one, there's a really bad track record of live-action attempts for anime. Going back, we all remember Dragon Ball Evolution. There's been several other attempts. I know it's been years ago, but Netflix tried to do Death Note. It wasn't well received, or at least not super well received. The main issue typically being that they don't follow the source material. There is also like a level of cringe that comes in when real life people try to behave the way that anime characters do. Anime characters are typically over the top emotional and, are very super engaged into fight scenes and things like that. They yell at the top of their lungs, and when you see real people act that way, there's a level of cringe there. Either that or people intentionally do it and they do it for comedy. There's a whole section of TikTok dedicated to people doing anime type acting, and they do it because it's cringy. And when you do it for laughs, it works, but when you do it seriously, it doesn't really work. And that's kind of some of the issue you get in with these live-action adaptations of anime content. When I'm watching the trailer for this One Piece adaptation, I'm having a little bit of that. I'm watching, this dude run around and act like Luffy and, scream at the top of his lungs, throw his hands up in the air, and do all that stuff that Luffy does. And it's like, I don't know if I can sit through 6 or 8 episodes of a guy acting this way. And to an extent, I was right. Look, there is definitely some of that in this show. There are times when they take things that are directly from the anime and they put it into the show, and it doesn't always land. It just doesn't. Sometimes you're watching and you're like, ugh, I don't know about that. I don't know if I'd have left that in there. But on the flip side of that coin, I think that there is something to be said for the first anime adaptation that I've ever seen to stay this true to the source material. These guys have gone above and beyond to make this thing as faithful as possible, which I think is something that anime fans have been begging for. If you're going to do it, if you're going to do a live-action adaptation, do it right. Use the source material. The story's already written for you. Don't put a realistic spin on it so that you can get like your superhero audience involved with it. Don't put a realistic spin on it so that you can get an older audience involved with it. Go for the anime fans. There are plenty of anime fans around the world. It's huge. It's bigger now than it's ever been. So don't try to change it so that you get other people, because what you end up doing is just like what we've seen in the past. You not only lose your core base, the anime fans, but you also don't pick up enough of the other people to ever have a success. And so it's got to be said that my hat is off to this show. There may be moments in the show that do come off a little bit cringy. And as you're watching it, sure, that happens from time to time. But they're few and far between. And frankly, they do about as good a job pulling it off as you could ask for. I really think that the actors, everyone brought in to work on this project, really bought into it. They really gave it their all. They really know the characters. They know what they're looking for. They know the motivations of the characters. They know the story, and they are doing their best to tell a faithful adaptation. And above all, that is the most important thing. And so, yeah, hats off to them immediately. Also, I will say, if you're a One Piece fan, you're probably a fan of the action. I mean, if you're watching an anime like One Piece, you're there to see some good fights. The show does a pretty good job with the fights. The choreography looks good. I will say, in particular, the fella playing Roanoa Zoro does an amazing job with those swords. I would have thought that would have been an extremely difficult thing to pull off. You're going to need someone who can act and do the sword work, and the fella that they've got to do it is phenomenal. I don't know how often they're bringing in stunt doubles to do that sort of thing, but it all looks really, really good. Sanji, on the other hand, look, he's a dude who only fights with his feet. He only throws kicks. And so at some point, there's going to have to be a little CGI in there. There's obviously some wire stunts done with this character. I don't know, man. If I was the actor, I would be winded quick throwing a lot of kicks. I mean, it doesn't take long when you're throwing kicks around to get winded, but honestly, it all looks pretty good. Even the CGI for like Luffy's stuff, him stretching and that sort of thing and throwing his body around, that all looks pretty good. The set designs are phenomenal. CGI is hit and miss. I brought it up, but CGI, there are moments where it doesn't look incredible, but considering you're bringing an anime into the real world, I think they did a good enough job with it that it's not a huge knock against the show. There are some differences between the show and the anime. Those, again, are not major differences. A lot of it has to do with minor characters and parts that are mostly filler anyway. So, like, for example, the Usopp Pirates, the young group of dudes that kind of follow Usopp around when you first meet him, they're not in the show at all. But the show doesn't suffer for not having them. Honestly, all you would be doing by bringing them in is bloating the runtime anyway. The show does a really good job with pacing. Honestly, from start to finish, you get enough of each character's backstory that it doesn't feel like you're just getting thrown into the world. But it also continues to move the story forward. It does very, very well at sprinkling backstory in, little 2-3 minute, maybe sometimes 5 minute flashbacks, and then you're right back to where you were, right back in the action. It never feels like it's blowing by any one character. It never feels like any main character isn't getting the spotlight that they deserve. Whether your favorite character is Zoro or Luffy or Usopp or Sanji or Nami, they all get plenty of spotlight by the end of the season, and I think that also is really commendable. I truly believe that they did about as well with it as you could do. If you want some more minor things that are missing, Usopp's nose isn't ridiculously long like it is in the anime. They decided just to go with a regular nose. Same thing for Sanji's eyebrows. They don't go into that like ridiculous curl at the end of them. Instead, they've just got a dude with regular eyebrows out there. And I think that these changes are fine. I don't see where you needed to have the actor run around with a giant prosthetic nose, or where you needed to paint on some fake eyebrows, or, apply some fake eyebrows for this dude. Those changes are understandable, and in the long run, probably not worth the time and effort that it would have taken to apply those things. And so I understand why they stepped away from those things. If I had to have one gripe about any of the characters, is I don't think they lean hard enough into the characters' personalities sometimes. For example, Roronoa Zoro is always kind of a quiet, stoic character, but he's almost too much that way. In the anime, he does show emotion from time to time. No, it's not very often early on, but he does get angry. He does yell. He does kind of engage in some of Luffy's antics or argue with Nami, and he does even laugh or chuckle from time to time. In the TV show, he's much more just emotionless, all up until the last episode or two, and then he starts to open up a little bit. I think they could have let the actor emote a little bit more, even if Zoro is kind of a quiet character. On a similar note, I think Sanji doesn't lean into his girl craziness as much in the TV show. This is a change that I understand, but it is at least noticeable. In the anime, the guy can barely accomplish anything if there's a female in the room, unless that female tells him specifically to accomplish something, and then he's phenomenal at it. That honestly kind of irritates me in the anime from time to time, because every time we have a new arc and they need Sanji out of the way, they just throw an evil female at him and he's useless for the entire arc until the end, and he figures it out. And so I'm actually kind of glad they made that change. He's still like a smooth talker. He's still flirty with the women. And so they have enough of it there that you get that part of his personality. So far, he hasn't completely just like lost it in front of a woman yet. So I don't know if they're going to lean into that more, but that is a small change that is made. albeit one, in my opinion, that I'm kind of glad that they leaned away from, at least a little bit. Everything else in the show is phenomenal, though. Like I said, the action is amazing. I think the acting is actually really good. It's not an easy ask to have an actor try to take an anime role and apply it to a real life adaptation. That's a big ask. Like I talked about before, those emotions, those things don't always translate well without them being cringy. But I legitimately believe that this cast did a fantastic job. And you can tell that they really appreciate the source material. It looks good. I mean, it looks like it came right out of the anime. The show looks amazing. The set designs, the props, the Going Merry. Like, there's small changes to the Going Merry. The Going Merry looks a little more menacing. I think the goat head looks a little bit more menacing in the show as opposed to the anime. But I don't mind any of these small, subtle changes. It certainly doesn't seem like they went out of their way to try to intentionally change things without good reason. It's a really good adaptation, a faithful adaptation, and one that shows a lot of love to the characters, to the world that it comes from, to the story that it tells, even opening up on Gold Roger's execution and explaining what the One Piece is. And so all these things into consideration, I really enjoyed it. And I know I've taken a long time to kind of get here because I wanted to talk about some of the small things I didn't like or cover over some of the differences, but at the end of the day, I had a blast watching this. There were times that made me laugh because it reminds you so much of the anime and how the characters are, how they act toward each other, that when you saw it on the live action, big screen right there in your living room watching it on Netflix, that you can't help but grin. You can't help but smile sometimes. If you know these characters well, you can't help but laugh from time to time. There are times where somebody will say something and I had to chuckle. I like the Usopp character. I think that actor is doing a great job catching Usopp's personality. There's one small part in particular that just caught me. It just caught me off guard and I had to laugh a little bit. It's in the middle of the fight at the Barate. Sanji's fighting some dude and a table gets knocked over during the fight. And just for a brief second, Usopp is on screen and he was hiding under that table. Like, it never showed him go under there that I saw. But as this table gets knocked over mid-fight, you see Usopp under there where the table was, and then he crawls off screen because he's a coward. And I loved that. That was probably a shot right out of the anime. I wouldn't be surprised if it was at all. But even if it wasn't, it captures Usopp's character so well just in that small moment. That's just a small sample size of how well they've done. Zoro's character is great. Like I said, the actor's great with the swords. Sanji's character, they hit the nail on the head. I haven't talked about Nami much, but this actress is phenomenal. She is doing a great job. Nami is the most, I would say, complex character amongst the crew. She has the difficult job of playing a double agent, and she pulls that off very well. The complexity of having to be that double agent because of her backstory, because of where she comes from, because she has to work for Arlong to try to work off this debt that she owes. This actress, I think, had the tallest task because Nami's personality is the most complex, in my opinion. And I think she honestly killed it, and I can't wait to see more from her as we move into more seasons. I hope we get more seasons of this going forward. All things considered, the action was great. I thought that Zoro's fight against Mihawk was really, really good. The only complaint about a major fight that I had was Luffy and Arlong felt a little rushed. That fight kind of happened very quickly, and it never really felt like Luffy was in a whole lot of danger, which to me felt different than when I watched it in the anime. It felt like a fight that Luffy might lose. But that second time that they fight in the TV show, it never feels like Luffy is in just a whole lot of danger. He formulates the plan to knock down the building very quickly in the TV show. And so that fight goes a little quick, but I'm not going to complain too much. I know that they've got a long way to go. They've got a lot to cover. This is a long-running anime, like we've said before, and so I expect those things to get better. If the show does well in this first season, they'll likely have a bigger budget going into the second season, which can only stand to improve the show as long as they remain faithful to the source material. See Witcher as a perfect example of what happens when you don't. So, stay faithful to the source material, and honestly, I can't wait to see more seasons of this. I'm giving Netflix's live-action adaptation of One Piece a 96 out of 100. Can't wait to see more. All right, let me know, have you seen the live-action adaptation? Did you think it was good? Were there parts that you were upset that they didn't include in? Obviously, there's a lot more I could talk about, but I've already spent nearly 20 minutes on this one, so I'll let you guys have the floor. Let me know in the comments some things what were your thoughts, what were some missed opportunities, or what were some things that you really appreciated that were in the show. Anything you want me to talk about, if there's anything in particular you would like to hear me go into more detail on, leave that in the comments below. If I get enough likes on it, or if there's enough people wanting me to speak in more detail about anything, I'll be happy to make another video if that's something that you guys want. Just let me know in the comments below. And if you didn't like this review, if you didn't like my thoughts on One Piece, don't get mad. Remember, it's just one man's opinion. Thanks.